Welcome to Queering Theology and Philosophy and Spirituality. This is fantastic music. Richard Strauss, the Horn Concerto. One of my favorite horn instruments is the French horn. So I hope you can hear it in the background. Beautiful stuff from the classical period. And today we are focusing on the Genesis Chronicles. We always discuss about the book of Genesis because it's an endless discussion of life. The book of Genesis, the first chapter, talks about the origin of life. And life is diverse. You must understand life is diverse. Diversity is the principle. And so there are very many forms. The sun is a life form. The moon is a life form. But we're going to discuss something today. And we want to really... It's a question we're asking about the classical elements. The classical elements: earth, water, wind or air, fire, and ether. That were they really created? You know, the Bible never tells fire was created. It doesn't tell us when was created. It doesn't tell us when water was created, and I'm going to prove it. It doesn't tell us when air was created. It doesn't tell us when ether was created. And these things exist. It means that the book of Genesis was not really written very well or with scientific knowledge. It's just it's just an explanation. If you want to know creation theory, which is rightly called creation theory, it's the theory that everything that exists came because of a creator. A creator, and that's why it's called the creationist theory or intelligent design. Now, most of the people who hold that theory tend to be, as we have said, when you read this chapter in the Hebrew, or when you read the name of God in the Hebrew, it says God is Elohim, many gods. And so it is either the Trinitarian position, actually in this case, position of other religions like Islam and Greek mythology and religion or Roman mythology that believes there were many gods. You know, almost like the planets. If science do not name the planets by their scientific names. We name them by their name because those days science and religion was one. Even in Europe, science and religion was one. And so Venus is a goddess, and Jupiter is a god, and Uranus is a god, and Neptune is a god, and Mars is a god, the god of war. And Earth was not called Earth, it was called Gaia. Gaia was a goddess. So Earth is a female god. The Greeks. And we are discussing Earth. And so I had questions because I always call it the Genesis Chronicles, is because we are always asking questions about the origin of life, the origin of man. And as I've told you, there are very many life forms, diverse life forms. Trees are life forms, humans are life forms, are also life forms. They don't breathe, but they exist. They came from something. They are material. And so we want to discuss these things today. We're using the Bible just to check what's said there. And as I told you, the question of the day is, when was the classical elements created? Let's go to Genesis chapter 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Now, that's the first thing you need to understand. According to the creationist theory, God created the heaven and the earth. Now, when you read this in Hebrew, it is Shamayim. And Shamayim is plural again. Im is heavens. It's not heaven, singular. And at the beginning, Elohim, God created the heavens and the earth. And the earth is one. It's Eretz. It's the land. So earth was, in Hebrew, is not called a planet. It's land. That is what it's called. It is land. Now, this beginning, it has not been put in any time zone, time space. That is the issue. There is no time zone, like the way when it goes on in the chapter, it says that on the first day God created this and this. On the second day God created this, and then third day they give day, but there is no day given for the creation of heaven and earth. It's time. It lacks time. So that has many theologians have been struggling with for centuries. A supporter of all of these. Now, it is a theory. It is a theory. It hasn't been proved. So there is nobody who has exclusive knowledge or evidence of the origin of life or the origin of the world. So that means Christians should respect atheists like Bill Nye. Bill Nye is not a supporter of creationism. He is a supporter of the scientific origin of the life. And this includes the Big Bang, and also there are other theories brought about by other scientists. And so he is also in the zone when it comes to the origin of life. And what he's fighting, and I support him, is not to teach a theory as truth. That's what creation do. They teach it as truth. And they teach it as truth rather than a theory. It should be a theory, because when it's a theory, then it means the whole world is agnostic when it comes to the origin of the world. Not because they can't stand, figure out what happened. What they have said happened, it cannot be proven that it happened that way. Sufficient proof that it happened that way. And like God creating the heaven and the earth, a scientist who doesn't believe in God wants to see God, wants to understand God, and you cannot punish that atheist because he has asked to see God who created the earth. You see, that's why the Pope changed his position on atheists and said atheists can go to heaven. Yes, it is a very important statement that came from the Pope, because people believe in hell because they don't believe in God. And that's not what an atheist is. An atheist wants proof. And as I always tell people, atheists are like Thomas, the disciple of Christ. He refused the statement of the disciples till he saw Jesus. And the Bible says he saw him. But you know what? We cannot even say if that story is true, because none of us who says it was there. The witnesses are dead, So we cannot come out and say that it actually happened. It's just alleged that Thomas saw Jesus and then he believed. It's understandable. So Some people are very evidential and you have to respect them. That's why we are calling for tolerance of everybody, including tolerance of atheists. Please understand, an atheist is he loves evidence with all his heart. He loves it. And the only problem they have is they don't believe. You see, there's a power in faith. People believe in. When you believe in something, you see, that's what Bill Nye was trying to address. The intelligent design people, they believe. Believing is accepting that something is true. It's worse because you don't need evidence to believe. This is what Jesus even told Thomas. Blessed are they who believe and have not seen, than those who see and then believe. You see? But do you know what I like about that story? Thomas didn't even reply. He was just happy he got the evidence. And that's what an atheist is not bothered about whether you will be more blessed because you live. He's bothered about, I just want the evidence. Give it to me. That's all. That's what's going to make me happy. So his happiness is not based on the happiness of another person. It's based on what he wants. I want evidence. Give it to me. So Jesus gave Thomas evidence and Thomas was happy. He didn't even respond to Jesus when Jesus told him off and said, blessed are those who believe and have not seen. They are more blessed than those who see and then believe. That was not Thomas' problem. Thomas wanted to believe and to see and then believe. But other believers, Christians or people who believe, religious people who believe in their religions, they believe before seeing. They accept. Like someone tells you, your dog is dead. You have not seen your dog dying. Someone has just called you. You're in France, and the call has just come from Bahamas that your dog that you left in the house is dead. Now, the person in France who owns the dog will say, yes, oh, it has died. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. It's so sad. And how sure are you the dog has died? You see, how sure? You've just believed someone telling you the dog is dead. Now, somebody who loves evidence will say, if the dog is dead, send me photos of that dog that it has died. Because I don't believe what you're saying. But there's some people who don't love evidence. They love statements. They love being told something. And they just said, oh, it's dead. I knew it was going to happen. I did take care of it so well. And blah, blah, blah. Not even seen a photo. So that's a believer. A faith person. A faith person is someone who stands for a statement. He doesn't have evidence to give a statement. But an atheist or somebody is evidence wants to see that what you're saying is true. He wants it backed up. It's visible in very important fields of science and law. Even in legal circles, it is not advisable to have people who really I saw one time in an African country and they were vetting judges, and I noticed you cannot let a judge who is very religious to be in position because they'll be very biased. They have a position. And Islamic has this judge have to be schooled in religion. That's why countries which have Muslims, the Muslims beg not to be part of their legal system because it is the Western legal system is secular. Peter told everybody to bring the money to the church. And Ananias and Sapphira decided to sell the land they had and then keep some of the money away. Now, they brought some poor Ananias that were lying to the Holy Spirit. This is not what you are supposed to bring. and immediately died. And then Sapphira came, and Sapphira also lied, brought her around, and Peter, follow your husband, and she died. So there was fear in the church. Why? Because did they need to go to court? You know, Paul would have taken, Peter, I don't know what I'm saying, Paul, Peter would have taken Ananias and Sapphira to court to prove whether they hid money. But because it was a religious court, the early church did not need to go to court because they had what you call the Holy Spirit, and they used it to that's, at least that's what the story says, that Peter had Spirit, so he could tell whether Ananias and Sapphira were lying. And so he said that, and they died. Judgment was passed at the door, and I think they just, because of shock, they didn't, Ananias and Sapphira didn't think that Peter would know that they had hidden some money. You see, so imagine if life was like judges who even they are seers, they can tell, I know you are the one who did this. Yes, it is you who did it. It will be very interesting. But the Western system is not like that. It has no Peter. Rather, it is based on evidence. It's an evidential system. It is not based on spiritual judgment. It's based on physical judgment, whereby you produce evidence to prove that somebody has committed a crime or an offense. That's why all systems are evidential. There's documents, too much writing. Why? It must be documented. There must be evidence that an agreement was made. If you make a verbal agreement, no writing, how do you prove there was an agreement? In ancient times, that's how people used to prove. As maybe have a place to show you made an ring. Rings are just evidence that you're married. Yes, that's a wedding ring to show you're married, but it proves to somebody out there that, excuse me, I have a spouse. So you wear the ring. That's evidence. It is physical, but it's non-verbal. It's not written evidence. So these are the systems we have in the world. Evidence, truth is what people look for. And that's the problem religion has. Almost religions have invisible gods. They don't know. They don't know how God looks. Nobody has ever seen him. And so there is no evidence of God. That's what makes atheists. Okay, that's a very interesting topic I was on. Let's finish to leave you thinking. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. We've already discussed that, verse 1. And the earth was without form and void. So, in the beginning, we don't know what time that was. It could even be 10 billion years ago. God created the gods. You can either say you're only God if you're an English monotheist, or if you're Hebrew, Elohim, gods. They created heavens and earth. And without form and void. Now that word void is the word ether. Ether, it was empty. The empty space, what we call empty space. And remember, read the word earth as land. Land. It is not earth, planet Earth. Today, we know earth as a planet. But in ancient times, earth was land. These guys did not know they were living on a planet. They just knew they were on something called earth, which is land, eretz. So they did it. And so, and darkness, just tell you, darkness existed. Darkness existed. What is darkness? Is darkness material? Light is material. Why is light material? It can be seen. Its effects can be seen. But darkness is the absence of light. So the question we are leaving you again with, all of you philosophers and scientists, is darkness material? Darkness was upon the face of the deep. Another material thing, the deep. You see? What is the deep? I would believe that before the earth, there was water on the earth at all. Now, the seabeds where we have the seas, if you remove water, they are like craters. So the earth is actually a planet with very craters. The Atlantic Ocean is actually the Atlantic crater. And the Indian Ocean is the Indian crater. Because if you remove water, it's like a bathtub. If you've used a bathtub, when you know water, it's like you're in a crater. So the depth of the Indian Ocean is the depth of the bathtub. And now the Indian Ocean is just a bathtub full of water. But when you remove the water, the Indian Ocean is a crater. So the crater, the Atlantic crater, and the Pacific. And then these craters are surrounded by the walls of the bathtub, which are the continents. So like the African continent is a wall of the Indian bathtub, one side. Then the other side is the Asian wall, Asian continent, that forms the wall of the bathtub, the Indian bathtub or crater. So this face of the deep, darkness was on the face of the deep, because the place was dark. It was dark, a dark planet, because the craters, when it's very, you can't see. When you're walking, have you ever walked to the mountain? Completely dark. There's no star, no moon. Walk and see, and just walk. You will not know whether you'll see darkness down there, and you can fall down. So, and the Spirit of God, again, the Spirit of Elohim, the Spirit of it is either the Spirit of God or Spirit of gods, because the word spirit is singular in the Hebrew, ruach, and then God is Elohim, meaning gods. So this Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And people say ruach means air. So the wind of God moved. And thank you for wind. Do you know how many winds are in the world? Very many. Right now, Hurricane France is headed to. The wind's direction is west-northwest. Can you imagine? That's a wind. There are westerly winds, there are easterly winds, there are southerly winds. What does this mean? It's the direction which the wind is blowing. Wind blows in all directions, 360 degrees of a circle. Those are the wind types, the wind forms. That's circular. It is all areas. And there are winds which, and wind, what is wind? It's air. And what is air? It is gas. And what is gas? It is a matter whose particles are not compact. They are scattered. So because of this scattering, these particles move in different directions. And as I've told you, all direction is 360 degrees. All of it. And then we'll go deeper into dimensions. We even leave the third dimension. And because space is multidimensional. So that means even wind can try anyhow. Motion. Infinite. Can go to northwest, then it turns into a westerly, then it goes back to south. Then the south wind meets the north wind, they collide. are hot, some winds are cold, some winds are warm. It's beautiful. And the wind is affected by the sun that heats up the wind. Now, so who knows the Spirit of God is the wind? And upon this of the waters. Now, this is the question I ask creationists. Water existed before it was created. So when was it? Now that tells you one classical element that nobody tells us when it was created. Because the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. So the face of the deep is the face of the waters. So the deep is the waters. Face of the deep, face of the waters. So the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters, which was darkness. Darkness was upon the face of the deep. Darkness was upon the face of the waters. We need to see the world. NASA and other space agencies like ESA, European Space Agency, and even China now has become a space guru, should paint a picture of the world when it has waters, but there is no sun. No sun, especially no sun, because the sun is the largest star in the solar system. Or rather, it is the closest star to the Earth. So switch off the sun and give us a picture of the Earth, how it looks with waters. What will it look like? I believe the water won't even look blue. Yes, water won't look blue. From outside, people may even think it's black water. It's very interesting. These are the thoughts that are running in my mind, and I'm still going to do more thinking on that. And so what I'm trying to say is there is no mention of when the waters were created. That is the question. I'm asking God, and I'm asking the writer of Genesis, when were the waters created? I've also asked the earth, which is also a classical element, a solid element. When was the earth created? Because we just said go in the beginning. When was the beginning? We don't know. And when were the waters created? We don't know. And then verse 3 says, and God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God light that good, and the light from the darkness. So again, there's a matter. Matter has been created, and it's called light. It's not the sun that was created. It's light. Now, either it's of Genesis that did not very well, or it was the fortunes being later. Darkness, from darkness, called the light day. That's when moon was the. So the first day, what type of light? Is it sunlight that Moses was talking about? Or it's light? And guess what? Now it takes us to the next element. We have already looked at the element earth, element water, element air. And when you talk about light, you're actually talking about fire. Because fire has light. Fire produces light. Fire is one of the most interesting elements in the world because it produces very many things. It produces heat, and it also produces light. Interesting. Very interesting. And we will look at these elements slowly. And what you need to know about process, it is even matter. It's a process happening. It's a mixture of chemicals going to oxidation. And what is oxidation? Oxidation is a process whereby reduction happening, addition of oxygen. And we can go and study and read what fire is. Okay. Can we get that now? Okay. We cannot get that right now, so we'll stop there. So, okay, we've got it. Something had happened to the net. Let's look at fire. Fire. Is it coming? Okay, fire is not coming. Why? Good. There is fire. Oops, it is in another language called, this is Swahili. Okay, let's go to English, the international language. This is fire. Fire is the rapid oxidation of a material. Are you seeing? Fire is not only an element on its own, but it's a process which oxidates in the exochemical combustion, releasing heat, as I've told you, light, as I've told you, and various reaction products. Now, let's read what oxidation is. Oxidation, redox for short for reduction, that is oxidation reaction, is a chemical reaction in which the oxidation states of atoms are changed. Atoms have oxidation states. What is an oxidation state? Oxidation. And this oxidation describes the degree of oxidation. Oxidation is basically the loss of electrons of an atom. So fire is whereby atoms lose their electrons. That's all. That's what fire. And it's a very interesting thing. Now, what I like is the fact that fire produces light. So, in the whole of Genesis, there is no mention of fire, the creation of fire. When was fire created? And I've told you it's because fire is not an element. It is what you call a process. It's the rapid oxidation of a material. That is what fire is. And now when we go to Strong's Concordance, we find, well, let us find when was the first time fire was mentioned in the Bible. Let's see the first time fire appeared in the Bible. This is 19:24. The first time. The Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah, bring fire from the Lord out of heaven. So fire came from the Lord. And what is fire? Is ash. It's a feminine noun, a primitive word. And let's look at the more infos about fire. A primitive word, fire, burning, flaming hot. Fire burning, flaming hot. Fire flames, supernatural fire. and all of that. Use fire. It was the first time it was used was in Genesis 15. And it came to pass that when the sun went down and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace and a burning lamp, a fire lamp, that passed. So you see, the word burning is the same as the word fire. So the first time the word esh was used was when Abraham had a sacrifice. And a burning lamp that passed. So first of all, you need to understand the Bible. It is someone writing a story. Even the writer of Genesis was not there. So we don't know where he got this story from. He could even have created in his mind. And you should never forget one thing. And this is what I tell religious people, those who have ears to listen, is that the writers we have today existed in the past. Only that the ones we have today are more refined and advanced. They even know that they are lying to you. That's why we have fiction. The writers of today are so kind, they even tell you that what we are writing is a lie. It's a fiction. It's called fiction. When you go to the bookstore, there are fictional books and non-fictional books. So the writers are telling you, today's writers are telling you, excuse me, if you want to study truth, go to the non-fiction area. If you want to study, you don't want truth, come and read from the fiction area. And that's it. But in the past, they didn't have that division. They just read everything, and it's up to you. You could either choose to believe it or not. So my problem is not about what was written here in Genesis and even the story that is so much misused by people. Like Sodom and Gomorrah burning. I mean, that one. And I mean, homosexuals have still existed and existed in Israel. And Sodom and Gomorrah is in Israel. So what does that mean? The inhabitants of Israel were gay, and even after Sodom and Gomorrah, they came back and they lived in Israel, and they were never destroyed. So those people who like using it, I just laugh at them every time. So my point was that we do not know when fire was created. Look at this. I like this one. Amongst the cognate languages, the Chaldee, and this is Esh. This is Esh. That's Hebrew. The word Esh, it's like that. Is also, the fire also means fever. So when the body, and have you noticed the human is very interesting. We have flashing. What does that mean? We have fire in. Yes, when you have a fever, it means it's getting hot. And what have we said? Fire is a process. It is a process. Even fever, when you have a fever, there is a process happening. There is a loss of electrons, because this is carrying so many chemicals. Sometimes the chemicals in fire are found in the human body. It's beautiful, people. Let's read science. Beautiful when you read the science of the human body. No? That's why we have temperature. The body is a thermometer. We're living temperatures. When you go to a country whereby the heat is too much, the body also up. And when you go to a country where the temperature is cold, you also go your balance. You wear warm things, and then if you're in a hot place, you remove the things so that you can be. Your body has a temperature, a balanced temperature, balanced heat. So anyway, conclusion is there is no mention about when fire was created. Secondly, there is no mention of when wind was created, and it's a very important thing. Look at Hurricane Florence is doing its wonders. That's the power of wind in conjunction with the sun that heats up the water that becomes gaseous, hence becomes wind, and becomes so strong because the waterbed is so big. So when the sun heats up large volumes of water, these large volumes of water become large mixture of large volumes of air, and some of the water still remains, and this wind combines with the wind that's all over the earth, and it creates an hurricane. But imagine, with all of that, there is no mention about when wind was created in the whole of Genesis chapter 1 and chapter 2. And then we do not know when the earth was made. Because we just saw it in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. We do not know when it happened. And the only part of the earth is when the waters, in verse 9, God said, "Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. Now, we won't do that preaching today. We're going to preach about the creation story as a creationist, for the creationists to enjoy. That God created it without create. What does this? The elements that existed listened to him. The things listened to him. It means the waters had God. When God said, "Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. So dry land appeared, and the waters were under the heaven were gathered into one place. The dry land, the gathering together, he called seas. So this means the earth was covered with water. So the whole world was watery. And now God divided the waters and called them seas, and he called the dry land earth. That's what happened. But we do not know when the dry land came to be, or the waters, or the fire, or the wind, or the ether. So I leave those questions to you. I was just asking myself questions. That's why it's a bit interesting. I'm jumping up and down. It's just questions I'm asking myself about creation. And that's why we called it the Genesis Chronicles, because we will always be asking ourselves the time. But thanks to carbon dating, we can be able to know the age of the earth or solids. But you know what? We have not been able to tell the age of water. And we have not been able to tell the age of fire. How old? And how old is wind? Can we get a measuring instrument that can measure the age of air, of wind? You know, those are the things we have. So knowledge is still scanty on very many things about the world, and we need to study. And I think what we need to do, as I conclude, in the science field, we need to study the elements. We need to study matter and understand the origin of matter, the origin of air. When did air become air? And the origin of fire. When did fire now become? Because I think for me, fire came when the elements came. You see? When the elements, the chemical elements we know, because sodium is involved in fire. You see? Sodium is involved in fire. And other gases. Let us see the gases found in fire. Okay, let's go back to this and conclude. So fire is hot because of conversion of the weak double bond in molecular oxygen. So you see, oxygen is part of fire, and the products involved are carbon dioxide, another gas, and water. So you can see all of those gases, physical properties of fire. There you are. Wow. So it's basically gases which are involved in fire. You see, oxygen is involved in producing a flame. Hydrogen is also involved. And all of these other gases. Beautiful. So basically, fire has all of these chemicals. As I was telling you, they're all chemicals. So we need to know what is the origin of chemicals. How old is iron? How old is oxygen? How old is sodium? How old is potassium? How old is hydrogen? This is, rather than just saying how old the earth is, we can only do that because the earth is full of carbon. And when you do carbon dating on all the elements on earth, I mean all the physical elements like the soil and stones, when you do carbon dating of some of those stones, you're able to get the age of the earth, because some stones are very old. Let's try and look at that. Oldest stone in the world. Oldest dated rocks. Let's go here. The oldest dated rocks on Earth as an aggregate minerals have not been subsequently found by or melted, are more than 1 billion years old, formed during the Hadean eon of Earth's geological history. So you see, 4 billion years. The ages of these can only be 2.5 and 2.8 years. See? Oldest rocks by category. There you are, 4.4 billion. Look at how, as the years were going on. And look at water. See? Earliest water. Wow, that's lovely. And earliest oxygen. Thank you so much. They had my earliest apes. There you are. So I think it starts from here. This is the 4.5 billion years, because the axis scale is million years. So 4,100, when you had a million, that is 0.5 billion years. So Earth came, according to this study, came, earliest water came, then earliest life came, then earliest oxygen came, then oxygen crisis happened. They have already, and this is the Pongola, and the Huronian and eukaryotes, and the multicellular life, and the Psychogeranian and Andean and Karoo and Ice Ages. So humans came here. Earliest plants, Cambrian, and the flowers and the plants. Now, apes, people, when you read the Bible, and you'll find waters were divided. As I've told you, there was no mention of air. So oxygen is not mentioned in Genesis, so that is gone. Then you have the other thing the Bible talks about, the plants. After the land was divided from the waters, plants were created. And then after that, the light. So there is no mention of the sun. You see, we need to know how old the sun is. Age of the sun. Let's read what NASA says. How old is it really old or not so much? Our sun is 4.5 billion years old. They have also said that the sun is as old as the earth. And they say that the sun will burn for about 9 or 10 billion years. So our sun is about halfway through its life. But don't worry, it still has 5 billion years to go. When those 5 billion are up, the sun will become a red giant. It means the sun will get bigger and cooler at the same time. When that happens, it will be different than the sun we know today, and a red giant or sun will become 2,000 times brighter than it is now. They are playing with the jokes. Now let's see age of the moon. How old is the moon? Let's read. Scientists say they finally know. They finally know. Oops, it's not scrolling. So, age of the moon. Okay, it's also, so we get another one. Age of the moon is, there you are, also 4.5 billion years. They have also said that. Now, that's the 4.53 era 9, so that's a billion years. And good. So this is what I was saying, how age of Jupiter, which again Genesis 1 doesn't talk about. It is the oldest planet, you see. Ancient Jupiter is the oldest planet in the world. Age of Venus, 4.5 billion, 4.6 billion. So basically, according to scientists, most of what is in the world is 4.5 billion years old. And this goes with Hinduism. Hinduism also says that the earth is 4 billion years. Let's do Hinduism creation story, and then we'll be done. Let's go here. Hindu views on evolution. I like Hinduism because they believe in cycles, and they believe the earth is, according to Hindu creationism, all species on earth, including humans, have devolved or come down from a high state of pure consciousness. Hindu creationists claim that the species of plants and animals are material forms adopted by pure consciousness, which live an endless cycle of births and rebirths. And Hindu creationists have insisted on the antiquity of humans, who they believe appeared fully formed as long, perhaps as trillion years ago. Hindu creationism is a form of old earth creationism. According to Hindu creationists, the universe may even be older than billions of years. These views are based on Vedas, which depict an extreme antiquity of the history of the earth. So you see, Hindus are even farther than NASA. They believe that the earth is a cyclic matter, that matter that keeps on creating and destroying itself, coming back to life, dying, coming back to life, and again. And listen to the scriptures, Hindu scriptures. Who really knows and who can swear how creation came, when or where? Even gods came. Who really know, who can truly say when and how did creation start? Did he do it or did he not? Only he up there knows, maybe, or perhaps not even he. So it's a very agnostic scripture. Basically, it's just ignorance. They do not know what happened, but Hinduism is very interesting. And earlier, what I like about them, they have the Elohim concept. Hindus have the Elohim concept, only that it's not Trinitarian. They believe, though they have a Trinity, there's a Hindu Trinity which we can look at later on. But what I'm trying to show you is the age of the world, according to them, is trillions of years. You know, look at what I said. It's here. Many Hindu philosophies mention that creation is cyclic. Yes, according to the Upanishads, the universe and the earth, along with humans, undergo repeated cycles, pralaya, of creation and destruction. So that's what they believe. In Hindu cosmology, our universe endures for about 4.3 billion years. One day of Brahma, the creator, or Kalpa. Can you imagine? In Hindu cosmology, one day, Brahma's one day, Brahma was the creator, is 4.3 billion years. That's one day. And the world is actually 4.3 billion years according to NASA and the other scientists. And guess what? We have just finished one day of Brahma. And it's then destroyed by fire or water elements. Look, this is just what Peter said. Peter said that when the world will end, it will be destroyed by fire. Now we'll have to study whether the Peter was not saying that the earth will be destroyed by fire, as these Indians have said, the Hindus have said. At this point, Brahma rests for one night, just as long as the day. So he's going to rest for 4.3 billion years after the earth is destroyed by fire. This process is called pralaya, cataclysm. Repeats 100 by years. That's 311 trillion 40 billion human years. That represents Brahma's lifespan. My goodness. Oh, so we're gonna, the way the earth has existed for 4.3, he's gonna sleep for days, then he'll again. Another thing. Yes, that's very interesting. Wow, this is why we are reading all of these things, all of these creation stories. While the creation evolution controversy has been much debate in the US, Bill Nye, we love you, and other countries, it is an insignificant issue in India because of its Hindu majority population. Hindus are among many faiths that have expressed apprehension about efforts to teach Christian creationism in public schools in the US. Bill Nye is with his Indians. One objection to the teaching of creationism based on the religious texts of a particular faith is that in a pluralistic society, this can result in the imposition of one religion. Yeah, thank you. It's basically indoctrination. That's what the Hindus are saying. They do not support the Christian creationism in public schools. Maybe do it in a private school, but in public schools, do not teach Christian creationism in a public school, because public schools belong to the government, and the government is secular, meaning it accepts all pluralistic views, all of any religion. And it's only a private school that can focus on creationism, Christian creationism, Islamic creationism, or even Hindu creationism. Beautiful. So anyway, we can't go on. I think I've talked enough. This was just, at least I have whetted my appetite. I have a lot of work to do, I can see, to read on. I'm very happy, but as I told you, Hinduism already solved the issue of time. Yes, they believe in cycle. They're very cyclic. there are cycles of 1 billion years. Just think of it in mathematics, that if there is a trillion, do you know how many cycles are there? Oh, it's infinite. Infinite. It's just beautiful. And so my issue is, okay guys, thank you so much for joining us on this travel of when the classic, they have not mentioned them. Hinduism talked about it. Hebrew, like the Bible, Genesis, the book of Genesis is primarily a Hebrew view of the origin of the world, what they see. And I'm also reading another book, The Sapiens by Harari Tuval, great gay scientist from Israel, a book of the Sapiens. I have a feeling that Genesis written, the story of Adam and Eve were the first Homo sapiens. They were not necessarily the first humans, because humans evolved to Homo sapiens. There was Homo habilis, Homo erectus, the hominids, the Zinjanthropus, and all of these Australopithecus, and you have even the Neanderthals that are said to have reproduced and had sexual relations with the Homo sapiens who left Africa. Homo sapiens left and they met Neanderthals, and they intermarried, and they created what we have as the Indians and Europeans. And we're going to find out what to study. I'm trying to tell you, please merge science with religion. Use science and use religion together to create a blend, so that why we're doing this is to tell religious people that they should not dispute science. Science is truth. Scientists are the best and the highest truthers in the world. And in Hinduism accepts that. You see, even the Hindus, because of their religion, they do not come from a religion that discards science. They try, and of course there are some areas in Hinduism that are very unscientific, like the caste system. It's very unscientific, and so they also have to solve that. But when it comes to creation or origin of life, they accept evolution, and they understand that evolution is real. But Christianity hasn't really fully done that, maybe with respect to combined evolution. To believe in evolution. And so, yeah, good. Thank you so much for joining us on Queer Theology and Philosophy and Spirituality.